language laws in a fair and balanced manner, drives unnecessary costs, creates tension and division between the community, places an unreasonable burden and sets unrealistic expectations on both citizens and businesses. It hinders the economic opportunity and the growth of New Brunswick, and it is not sustainable. New Brunswick, for the first time, has actually had more deaths than births in the first quarter of this year. And New Brunswick, the territory's gross income and gross product has actually receded over the last 6 years.
Excuse me, before you leave this slide,
Oh, yep.
I'd like to point out you could apply that to the federal government.
Sure.
Oh, yes. Well, to a large degree, the only reason why New Brunswick can actually achieve this is because of the federal government. And I am totally impartial in relation to politics in Canada, but it certainly saddens me that it was Kevin Harper who gave the initial $10 million for this program to start, or his government did. Whether he was aware or not, he should have been, if he wasn't. Yep, that's just the statistics, which is a little difficult to understand. Mother tongue, right, is the dark one. The lighter one is bilingual. 1989, there was substantially more French than there were bilingual, so that's who could speak both French and English. 1989 in English, right? So there was 60% plus of the population who only spoke English, and just over 10% who could speak French as well. And then in 2011, just slightly less who have English as their mother tongue, but who can speak French as well. It's a little bit hard to follow it, but that's from statistics from Canada. So despite 43 years, the use of the French language has decreased. Despite 45 years, the Anglophone population able to work and communicate effectively in French has decreased by only 4%. So those who need to still can. And while the costs of bilingualism are currently estimated at more than $85 million annually in New Brunswick alone, and they're no further ahead than what they were 45 years ago. You would think that somebody would step up and say, now, come on, you know, is this worth implementing this amount of money? Yeah. So the concerns are employment and advancement opportunities, education, and that's both the quality of the education and the availability of it. There are 600 English schools that are being reviewed with the view of closing them. There are no French schools at all in that category. And even though one of the French schools has a total of 24 students. So I forget, just trying to think of the last two they closed. There was something like 87 students in one of the schools that they closed, English schools. And again, this takes a little bit of working through. This is public sector jobs and the number that have been posted. So there's 34 positions, right? Of that, 20 were bilingual. Now, doesn't that tell you something? Sorry, I'm in your road. Beth, why don't you move, buddy? Yeah. Yes. So of the 34 positions of public, that's governmental jobs, right? Out of 34, 20 of them were bilingual. And a person who is English and has gone through schooling with the, and I forget the title, immersion, the French immersion, they are all ruled that their French is not substantial enough to be considered for a bilingual job.
Just like in Ontario. Just like Ontario.
Yeah. Okay, so there was two positions that could have been filled either by French or English. And English only, there was only 11 jobs in the public sector offered to English people, but 20 to the French. Now, closed jobs, and I'm not quite sure what the definition of that is. I still believe it is government jobs, but they're ones that have not gone out for public notification. Again, bilingual, 63 positions, and that represented 48%. English or French, 2 positions. English with French as an asset, 4%, 4 jobs. And English only, 56 positions. So again, the bilingual positions were greater than those offered to English people as an English. And what's actually happening, particularly in Miramichi, they're closing the government retirement villages, and they're going into what they call a PP something else, but a public-private partnership, 3 Ps, yeah. So the people who have worked for up to 30 and 40 years in those retirement villages in Miramichi have to reapply for their own jobs, still partly publicly funded, and because it is public, a percentage of it is public, they're enforcing the Language Act, and every job has to be bilingual. And Miramichi is very high population of Irish. So I think you can look out for some fireworks. The Language Commissioner herself tried to enforce the town to write Miramichi and when it was established on their water tower, she wanted that in French, and she wanted the French at the top and the English at the bottom, and they told her to go and get it photographed. Some of these are too small. Oh, these are actually jobs. Yeah, this is a job for Retail Sales Association, and that's in Bell Alliant. No connection whatsoever to a government job, but they are being pressured to have bilingual staff.
That's not necessarily a sin, though, to have.
No, to have bilingual.
Yeah, I mean,
no, of course it isn't.
I have to have a couple of people who are bilingual too.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it, but if it's not being used adversely as a means of English people not fulfilling the jobs.
Forced bilingual is what we're against.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's very, very sad. One gentleman spent 4 days in a hallway in the hospital in Dumont and sadly died for lack of attention. So the French hospitals receive an additional $20 million over the public hospitals in New Brunswick. So the question was put to the Health Minister that knowing where it's possible to save $40 and $60 million by merging the health authorities, and his reply was, and the question is how much the current state of healthcare would be gained by an additional $40 to $60 million into the general hospital medical care. His answer to that question when he was asked, why don't you just do away with the bilingualism and allow, under the Act actually, the hospitals have the right to determine which of the two languages they're going to operate under. And then, if a person comes in who is French only, then they're obliged to provide an interpreter or a medical person who is bilingual. But they insist on having separate French hospitals, separate English hospitals. And the most insidious one of the whole lot is in Moncton. There is a French-only hospital, and I forget the amount of money, but they actually put a Parisian cafe in the French hospital. They are now in the throes, in conjunction with the Moncton University, to attach a retirement facility to the French hospital, and they had so much audacity that they even advertised that people from the Moncton University and French-speaking people would have priority.
We're trying to do that right here in the field.
Yeah.
I wonder what the Human Rights Commission would say.
Yeah.
Still waiting.
Yeah, so again, despite being able to save 40 or 60 million, New Brunswick operates health authorities, one operating primary in English, the other in French. However, they both provide bilingual facilities. So, you know, instead of having two hospitals in the same area, why not have one and another hospital facility somewhere? I think there's something like 50,000 people in New Brunswick who do not have a doctor. Doctors will not go to New Brunswick because their tax rates are 52% in the dollar. Yeah. That's just a slide with the Minister. Victor Bordeaux was asked about the possibility of merging them, and he said no. The reason he cited was language. He also suggested that an effort to remove the dual system would end up in the Supreme Court of Canada. So they're going to use your money, or New Brunswick people's money, to fight it. This is another example. Funding is granted for the promotion of heritage and cultural based on the minority groups, not based on the whole population. Similar funding and promotion is not available to the Anglophone community except in Quebec, where they are the minority. So that's the only good side of that. An example would be the recent large, and it was huge, celebration of Arcadia Day in St John, and that's where there is 1.5% French, and the mayor was challenged on this. Where was the funding for the Anglophones to celebrate a day? And the answer was no, there isn't any.
Sorry for asking this question.
No.
I've lived in Montreal for over 6 years. I've never seen an English community center.
Yeah. Well, it's supposed to be there.
It's not there.
Yeah.
In fact, they refuse you service in English.
Yes. Yeah, so, and what the Anglophones were asking was some support and funding for their Loyalist Day, refused by the council. Significant funding and promotion of Arcadian festivals, celebrations, sporting events, etc., without an appropriate balance towards promoting and protecting Anglophone cultural events and heritage. So it's very much one-sided. And this is the school bus issue. The Minister for Education is currently